And introduction. This is a Futon porch swing from Home Depot. Steel construction, bolt together yourself, comes in this box. The rest of the video will detail how this goes together. Okay, beginning of this video, this is a 3-person Futon spring from Home Depot. I don't see any other brand name on this, so we'd venture to guess it would be sold under the Hampton Bay brand name, but it doesn't appear to be marked like that here. So chances are you're also going to see these at Lowe's or Kmart or Walmart. But kind of a neat design. Comes in a large heavy box. Interestingly made in Taiwan, which means somebody paid to import this. And early on, one of the things you got to be careful of is opening this. Don't overuse a knife to open this box, or else you'll possibly cut some cushion. So we'll get all the parts spread out and start from there. Roughly 10-15 minutes to get it unpacked. We separate out the cardboard, put that in a recycle pile. There's a fair amount of plastic to protect the powder coating when it's new. Now, as far as the cushions go, okay, so we're mostly unpacked, and one of the things you may realize there was not much of an instruction booklet, but it is here with your pretty neatly organized nut and bolt pack. IKEA doesn't organize their stuff this way, but the Asian-made stuff, they do. It's kind of smart. So you're usually going to get a pretty accurate count of hardware in your stuff. And like some of this other stuff, the instructions are kind of rudimentary. So I'll be slowing down and being really careful on the video. The box is kind of an internal buffering system for the parts so they won't be bashed up on each other. Your chances of getting damaged parts in this are minimal, but again, be very careful. Don't use a knife in opening the box because the cushions are toward the outside of the packing. The other thing I'll do with something like this is we're going to leave the plastic on the cushions until we've already got this thing positioned where it's going to go permanently in the yard here. So kind of lay everything out, see what you got. You can check inventory with the first sheet in the instruction book. Checking inventory in your nuts and bolts box is pretty straight up and obvious. It does come with what they consider to be the necessary tool, which is a couple of cheap wrenches here. One of the big differences in speeding up the assembly process will, of course, involve getting an appropriate power tool on this, which for me is going to have the impact. These look like 1/2 inch to me, but I'll be double checking. These bolts here are hex, so they've thoughtfully included a Allen wrench for this, but again, I'm going to use probably a hex drive adapter and a power tool. I'm getting tools out for this thing. It's metric. The whole thing's metric. And one of the things I'm running into on this is that this stuff here is 13 millimeter. Okay. Now, under a lot of normal circumstances, you can interchange 1/2 inch, which is 12.7 millimeter, to 13 millimeter because there's a little fudge factor in the sizing. On this, they went full 13 millimeter on these things, so 13 millimeter coarse thread. On the hex bolt stuff, it's 4 millimeter, and so I got a 4 millimeter hex adapter here for the power tool. And as we get going, it's going to be slowed down a little bit because I couldn't find a 13 millimeter socket. A 1/2 inch on this will fit the nut driver portions of these, but it's a minority of the fittings on this. Okay, so you're going to grab some of these curved pieces, a B and a D, a Bravo and a Delta, and pair them up. Now when they're in a package, they're not paired up. They're actually like the 2 B's are together and the 2 D's are together. When we set it like this, we mix them. So that's your main cross beam, which is actually welded, and then we're making a sandwich with the bolts, so this actually becomes a pretty reinforced area. The other thing is, check your bolt hole positioning and all of that so you don't get something reversed here. As far as I can tell, the B and the D are identical, but maybe something shows up later on and they're not. We've also got bolt holes here pre-welded in place for these cross pieces, and so you know these kind of position in and determine that reinforcement angle. What I suggest on this is you check your bolts, you check your stuff. On this, we're using the AA bolts. There's only 4 in a package, so you know we use all of them here. And on that part up there, leave everything loose until you have all the pieces in place, and then put it on a level surface to tighten it down. I'll show you what I mean. And the reason is that if you prematurely torque something down in one section, you may find that you have misaligned another section, and then it becomes another part impossible to install. So we're just kind of going finger tight on these, but these are nylon lined lock washers. So you may want to go a little more than finger tight, but don't go cranking it down with a power tool until you have all the pieces in place, and then know that things are kind of positioned and level and square and are going to work. The structure up with the things tightened down. Turns out the reason there's a difference between these two is because one has the mounting points for this reinforcement. That reinforcement bar that goes at the rear. So you would have a reinforcement thing across the bottom. Once this is up, it's actually pretty rigid and pretty sturdy. So that's basically what's going on. You could position these so that the nuts and the bolts are on the other side and go either way, and it comes with little plastic covers to pop on there, so that's nice. The tightening on this, it's possible just to super crank that and start bending that in. So you know, again, there's a reason why there's lock nuts on there and not something that you would just crank down forever. The other thing you want to be careful about is over torquing the connectors. Here again, you don't want to strip it out. It's steel, but it's mild steel. I'm using a hand wrench on the vast majority of this because I couldn't find a 13mm socket in my toolkit, but I think it's going to end up being a little bit better build because of that too. So we'll keep going, and basically everything left here is for the swing assembly, and we'll start on that promptly. Okay, no way around unpacking the cushions at this stage. We have to pass these metal sleeves through the cushion because the cushion itself is semi-structural to the unit. I say semi-structural because the frame for the seat gets constructed around the cushion. What you're going to be using is these Allen bolts, and I kept trying to figure out why some were slightly longer than the others. It's because of the way the adjustment works on this armrest assembly. One piece is thicker than the other. So the shorter of the two bolts goes where the thinner side is. The thicker part is going to take the longer of the bolts. And this is your orientation on how it goes in. One of the things I use to kind of track that positioning, because it's kind of a mirror image to what's in the owner's manual, the location of this tag. We want this tag to end up on the bottom. Hopefully they're all going to be made the same way, but that's what I did. And so you can see the orientation of this piece. This extra bar ends up low, okay, and this will end up above it. We're using a slightly thicker Allen bolt to secure the middle bar. The top and the bottom are rectangular tubing. The middle is a round tubing, and that has a little threaded collar type thing welded into it for its structure. The rest of these, we're just passing a bolt all the way through, and they give us this little acorn nut type thing for the other side. And so what I'll do is I'll use the Allen wrench on one side and the little pliers on the other to hold it while I tighten it down. The thing is, like we did on this structure, I'm not going to do all the tightening down till everything's kind of in place and we know that we've got our kind of squareness and orientation correct on everything. Erasing the clock as it's starting to get dark here, and I'm hoping to get this done inside of 2 hours. I would say for most normal people this is going to be a 2-hour project. If you're working alone, if you have an additional person, it'll go faster. The way the mounts work on this, there's no chain involved. It's rigid bars. So the longer of the two bars goes in the front, and we've got holes for those hooks, and we've got lock nuts there. Now, you don't crank those down all the way tight because there's a hook, right? You'd just be cranking it down beyond the threaded part. So what you do is you crank it down so that you've got enough extension of the bolt through the nut that the nylon washer inside engages and locks it, okay? And with a rigid bar design, it's going to be plenty strong and weatherproof. And the thing about rigid bars is they're less likely to, let's say, pinch your arm or catch a little body part and pinch you if you're swinging or that sort of a thing. So it's a smart design. What I figured out here is you put in either the front or the rear first, and then we put in the other bars. Now, the way you tell them apart is one set's longer than the other. So this one has the adjustment for, you know, whether you want this out in kind of the futon bed position or in the upright couch style position. And that's, I don't know, makes this kind of a slick little item. And then I'm going to double check the instructions to see whether or not it's the knob goes up or down. Here we have it. The knob is goes down into the rear, so you can, you know, easily reach it to make any adjustments as far as the back of this goes. We're going to firm these up so that when you go to do the test sit, it doesn't like extend out into the bed position and flop me on my back. But you know, pretty good strong design they put on this without the chains. Flipping this around to get these engaged, a little tricky but not impossible. So next comes the upper rain canopy. There's an upper rain canopy on this, and we'll be putting that on next. Okay, it's not clear in the instruction whether it's better to put this together on the ground or up in the air. I kind of want to put this together up in the air, partly to keep the canopy out of the dirt, okay? So what it is I put these pieces on first. There's a long bolt that goes through here. It's a carriage bolt, so there's a square opening that holds onto that. And of course this knob goes on. All this stuff was pre-installed on the hardware. And these two from the left and right are interchangeable. We then put these bars on with the 4mm Allen bolts. There are some hex ones which are threaded the same way, but the reason we're going to use that Allen bolt is so that it's flat and smooth here and you don't have any sharp edges on the bolt cutting into the canopy. Over here we're going to do the same thing. Now, similar to this, we've got to take the canopy out of the bag, pass the additional bars through, and get that installed on also before it gets dark on us. Yeah, easily done while this is up. You pass the other bars through the little sleeves here. There is no side-to-side bar except, of course, your top support. And then just kind of fold these down, pop them over, and then there's a bolt for attaching it at the corner. What I didn't see in the kit was a nut for that, so I'm going to double check and see if maybe this is threaded on the inside. So basically the way this holds is you fold this over like this, although I'm going to try and fold it one notch down so that the bar is not showing. And it's these little nuts that go on there. There we are, all done. Well, just about done. I'm doing a few final touches, but we're losing daylight. Around a 2-hour project. Is a Home Depot futon swing, they call this, covered futon swing. Kind of nice, but yeah, we call it a two-hour project for one person. Two people will probably speed that thing up by about, maybe 45 minutes or so. And but it's not going to cut in half because there's some stuff that just can't be taken out of sequence and worked on by a second person. But there we go. We hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will now film the start.